Hey, this is the man who on Easter gave rabbit stew to orphans, Bruce the Blog.
Oh, thank you, Bazzo. And this is Bazzo, and you're watching Bruce the Blog Goes Bazzo.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Bruce the Blog Goes Bazzo. We want to immediately introduce to you our very special guest, and that is Jeffrey Deskovic. Jeff, welcome.
Thanks
for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's good to have. Jeff, why don't you ask him why he's got a pink handkerchief on? Because we're not wearing handkerchiefs, if you notice.
I noticed that. Well, why are you wearing pink handkerchief?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Jeff. And the reason is this is a tribute to the Florida Congressman Allen West. And
Yes.
you know about his comments recently. He said that something like his allegation was that something like 80 Democratic members of Congress, I think his phraseology was on the order of, are card-carrying communists.
Wow.
And then he, what a surprise, used all the controversy surrounding that comment to send a fundraising letter out to conservatives. You know, it was basically shameless promotion, which we've been known to do almost every show.
Is it Visa or MasterCard they're using? Because I didn't know that maybe they're the sponsor of Communist Party.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, I don't know. It's probably all of the above.
You know, because I have a Shell
So I
Visa.
just, anyhow, I thought if Allen West is watching and he saw my pink thing, maybe he'll, give me some exposure too and include me in some of his future campaign comments.
Are you a card-carrying member of the Communist Party?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I didn't know they had a card.
I didn't know either, but I
Really?
know you're not registered to any party.
Do you get like points on it when you use it? I don't know. Anyhow, we're brought to you by the Penny Saver and parent company Chase Media Group. And as always, we thank Chase Media Group CEO Carla Chase and Frank Rich for putting up with us and putting us up and things like that. So, and every so often, we do a salute of the week every show, of course, and every so often we depart from the standard procedure for Salute of the Week, and never has it been more appropriate. And we salute our guest, and that's what I'm doing. I'm saluting our guest, Jeff Deskovic, which you'll understand when we talk. If you haven't already recognized his name when we speak about his unique experience and extraordinary perseverance, that he deserves every bit of a salute. And Salvo, I was going to say, Salvo, do you have a Bazzo?
Not only that,
Bazzo, do you have a salvo?
This is going to be unique because my salvo is going to segue into why you're here.
Yeah, okay, that's
I
good.
want to salvo these organizations, political parties, politicians who want to marginalize people by making the hyphenated American. We've been here for 230 years. We are Americans, not hyphenated, and we are our own culture. We are our own country, and when you allow them to hyphenate you, they marginalize you, weaken your power, and make you feel a victim. And nobody should have the power to make you feel a victim or marginalize you. And
okay, so what's your example or illustration?
well, when something goes wrong, they say, "Oh, they're picking on me because I'm fill your thing in there, and maybe you're a jerk, and that's why they're picking on you."
And there's no hyphen in jerk,
And,
right?
there's no hyphen in jerk. That you were made to feel a victim because you were part of a subset of a group that they say, "Oh, we're picking on you because you are this," and that's not true. There are some people that life dumps on, and they can either make themselves a victim or not, but you don't let somebody else make you. Only you have the power to make yourself a victim or a non-victim or marginalize yourself. And that's why I say we segue, because, there's nobody I know in my life that life has dumped a load on his head than you, Jeff. Yet from the day I met you, you have never played the victim card. I mean, you had your lawsuits to get the rest of your life back, which you were entitled. But the first day I met him, where were you? It was your first day of freedom?
Yes.
And he came off the train in Peekskill, and here's this waif with this duffel bag that's got nothing that you would write home about, needing a cab ride and no money.
Right.
And
you were what at the time?
I was 32.
32. Okay.
And I didn't recognize him the moment I saw him. I felt sorry for this poor guy. It was 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, and he's in Peekskill, and just something. So as we were driving to where he wanted to go, it hit me that I had just seen his face last week the week before in the paper that he had finally been exonerated. But I'm saying, here was a man wrongly convicted. Nobody would listen. Then finally somebody listens, and but he never played the victim.
And by the way, we have to, we're sort of jumping ahead here. We have to reset and explain to everybody.
Right, I will. But my point is, all this time in getting his life back, he's never played the victim card.
Right.
He's moved forward, and that's what I was saying. You have the power either to wallow in self-pity, or play and be a victim and marginalized, or take control of your life. And our guest, and I'll let you go into this with him, took control of his life, and
I have to say, I mean, I just met Jeff a few minutes ago, right? I mean, Bazzo, of course, you know each other, but I just met you a few minutes ago, and I have to tell you, knowing your remarkable story, my reaction was, boy, this person is so calm, peaceful demeanor, considering what you went through, is obviously, a living hell. Literally a living hell.
Lost 16 years of your life. 16 years of your life you lost.
And
right?
I said, wow, he is what a calm demeanor he has for somebody who's been through something that nobody can imagine. I mean, nobody can begin to imagine. So can you just summarize as best you can, Jeff? Going back to to your conviction.
Quick backstory on this one. You always maintained you were innocent.
Yes.
Nobody listened.
No.
Who finally listened?
Okay, well, no, let him explain.
Let him
tell the story.
I'll incorporate that into my account.
Yeah.
Okay. I was wrongfully convicted based upon a coerced false confession, which was extracted from me after many hours of interrogation. I was 16 years old at the time. Prosecutorial misconduct, fraud by the medical examiner, and an inept public defender. Most people think that only guilty people confess, but I'm here to explain that police are trained in interrogation tactics. When you look at what happened to me, I was driven from 16 years old. I'm driven from the town of Peekskill to Putnam County. So now I'm unable to leave on my own. I'm dependent upon the police. They put me in a small room. I didn't have an attorney present. My parents didn't know where I was. They attached me to a polygraph machine.
And what about, did they read your Miranda rights? Or?
The polygraph. Well, the polygraph.
Right, you don't have to say anything.
The polygraphist was a Putnam County Sheriff's investigator who was pretending to be a civilian. So he read me participatory warnings, not Miranda warnings. I wasn't given anything to eat the entire time I was there. They gave me countless cups of coffee to begin with. Now, the reason why that's important is because the premise of the polygraph is that when a person tells a lie, that you'll become nervous. Your nervousness will result in the pulse rate speeding up, and it's the pulse rate that's actually measured by the machine. The problem is
caffeine.
Yes, other factors which will result in your pulse rate speeding up would include fear and, as Bazzo just mentioned, caffeine.
Oh, so you're saying they ply you with coffee?
Yes, they did. They played good cop, bad cop. And the polygraph has used many third-degree tactics. I mean, he invaded my personal space. He raised his voice at me. Over and over again, I told him I was innocent and that I didn't know anything about the crime. He continued his interrogation. As each hour passed, and he got more and more aggressive and ferocious, my fear increased in proportion to the time I was there. Towards the end of the interrogation, I mean, I was there really early in the morning up until like about 6 or 7 o'clock at night. Towards the end of the interrogation, the polygraphist, he made a statement. He said, "What do you mean you didn't do it? You just told me through the test results that you did. We just want you to verbally confirm this." At that point, the officer who was pretending to be my friend, he entered the room. and he informed me that the other officers were going to harm me, but that he's holding them off, but you can't do so indefinitely. You got to help yourself here, you understand? When he also added that if I did as they wanted, not only would they stop what they're doing, but that I could go home afterwards. Being young, naive, frightened, not thinking of the long-term implication, just concerned my own safety in the moment, I took the out which they offered, and I made up a story based upon information which they gave me in the course of the interrogation. By the police officer's own testimony, by the end of the interrogation, I was on the floor. I was in what they described as a fetal position, and I was crying uncontrollably. Needless to say, I was arrested.
Up to this point, you had never been really involved with the police at this point at your age.
No, I hadn't been arrested for
So
anything,
you're
not even a
16
violation.
years old.
This is my first
So
encounter
you're
with the police.
16 years old, and this mountain comes at you. I mean, I just can't even emphasize how scared you must have been.
There's no way to really put it into words, but other
Yeah,
than to say
nothing
what you
prepares you
said.
for that.
Nothing.
Nothing prepares you for that, yeah.
Right.
So then what happened next?
Well, I was arrested.
Right.
Results of the FBI lab came in showing that semen found in the victim didn't match.
Did not match.
Did not match.
Right.
No, and so
Because it wasn't you.
right, in order to explain away the exculpatory evidence, the prosecutor trashed the reputation of the victim by virtue of the fraud by the medical examiner. The victim, Angela Correa, who was a citizen of Peekskill, I want to add this was the Peekskill Police Department, over the investigation overseen by then Lieutenant and now Chief Tumalo. I was a resident of Peekskill. The arrest happened in Peekskill. The crime happened in Peekskill, and the victim was from Peekskill, so it's a local connection. But the victim was a 15-year-old immigrant from Colombia, in the country for a year and a half, leading a very sheltered life, in which she never went outside, save accompanied by her parents or her sister. So that being who she was, the prosecutor, 6 months after the autopsy was originally performed, and by the way, they do the audio recording and the notes contemporaneous to the findings. So it was only after the DNA results don't match me, 6 months after the original autopsy, that suddenly, for the first time, in order to try to counter the DNA that the medical examiner, Dr. Rowe, claims, well, he found medical evidence showing that the victim was sexually active, which the prosecutor then used that testimony in order to argue basically that the DNA exclusion doesn't matter because she was sleeping around, and that could have been from her boyfriend, which they knew she didn't have any boyfriend.
Right.
The public defender I had was not very good. He never explained to the jury really what the significance of the DNA exclusion was. He didn't use the results to argue that the so-called confession was coerced and
You
false.
think he went into this thinking you were guilty, and maybe that's why? Just curious. I mean,
that is...
what was the vibe you got?
The vibe I got was initially I think that initially he thought that I was guilty. In fact, at one time he even raised the issue with me. He said that he wanted to go with an insanity defense, and that was before he even asked me anything. And I immediately ruled that out, and I explained to him I was innocent. But once the DNA results came in, there's no way he could have not known that I was innocent, as I see it, because as a lawyer he would know what that meant. That medical examiner who did the fraud, by the way, my lawyer never asked him a single question on cross-examination. He literally stood up in court and told him, "You'll be pleased to know that I don't have a single question for you." When the hair on the body didn't match, I just want to add one point. I know you had a question. When the hair on the body didn't match, the prosecutor argued by inference, it must have come from the medical examiner, but he never did any testing to prove that. He withheld the samples from the hair expert who wanted to do the comparison.
Right.
And when that happened, my lawyer was supposed to jump on that and insist that the testing be done, only he didn't do that. And really, my lawyer should not have represented me in the first place, because the youth that the prosecutor was arguing by inference, mentioning his name, they claimed that she had this sexual encounter with, he was also represented by legal aid, and in fact by my trial lawyer's supervisor, so it was a conflict of interest.
Right.
Add it all up, I was found guilty. That's what I'm trying to say.
I was just curious, you're using the word fraud and medical examiner in the same sentence.
Yeah.
Has this been settled now, that you're not opening yourself to a libel charge?
I'm not opening myself to a libel charge. Yes, I was able to settle. I filed a federal civil rights lawsuit in which I sued the Westchester County, which is made up of two components, the district attorney's office and the medical examiner's office. The other defendants, which we'll get to that after. But,
Right, but
but yeah, I sued Westchester County and I settled with them.
Okay, so we're not leaving anything open
Right,
here. I'm
right.
just
Absolutely not.
And I just want to jump ahead now. Where were you incarcerated, Jeff?
Yes, I was incarcerated primarily. You know, I want to add one thing about the medical examiner. We found 3 other instances where he changed his findings later to suit prosecution theories. Going to your question,
Right.
Bruce, I spent 13 and a half of the 16 years in Elmira. I also did time in eastern Shawangunk, and the last 28 days was in Sing
the
Sing.
hell is Shawangunk?
That's in Wallkill.
Right.
Where is Wallkill? Is it in New York?
Yes, it
Oh,
is.
yeah, Wallkill.
Yeah, I think it's.
know.
I think that's in
Wallkill, yeah.
Dutchess County.
Do
I
they
believe.
walk
Yeah,
upright?
Right.
Yes, but listen. Well, only when they're not walking up the hill. There's a lot of mountains there and wineries.
And are they maximum security facilities?
They were all maximum security. Yeah, my sentence was 15 to
And
life.
you were in general-
Which I want.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
which I wanted to just add real quick. I just want to get the backstory out there, and then whatever questions
Right.
you guys have. You know, I was sentenced by the judge, Judge Colabella, even though he said to the I pleaded with him to overturn the conviction because
Right.
I was innocent. I referenced the DNA, and he actually told me on the record, maybe you are innocent. But he didn't overturn the conviction. He sentenced me to 15 to life. I lost all of my appeals, all 7 of them, and ultimately I was cleared. About 16 years later, because the Innocence Project, a not-for-profit organization out of Manhattan that works.
Barry Sherrick, right?
Barry Sherrick's
Sure.
organization, which works to.
Who's famous for his work. Yeah,
Absolutely,
right,
yes, and clearing prisoners across the country
Yes,
in DNA cases. They agreed to take my case, and they got the cooperation of District Attorney DiFiore, who, unlike Ms. Pirro, who was her predecessor, who would not allow me to have more sophisticated testing, she agreed to voluntarily let me have further testing, and the results matched that of the real perpetrator, who subsequently confessed.
Right.
His DNA was only in the data bank because left free in Peekskill, he killed school teacher Pat Morrison. You know,
And-
3.5 years later, after he killed the victim in my case.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, we are on cable, but we're not HBO, so we can't be too graphic. But
No.
you know, and I know it's no joking matter to say the least. But I mean, what was your experience? You know, in prison,
Were you in
we see
general
movies, we
population?
see shows, we hear things. I mean, you know, we can't get too detailed, obviously, but you know.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I can.
You know, interacting with other
But
inmates.
you weren't in
Sure.
protective. You were in
I
general.
would not impact. I was not. No, first of all, I was in a men's maximum security prison. Even though I was 17, I was not sent to a facility
Juvenile.
for youth.
For youth
juvenile.
offenders, yeah,
No,
right.
was sent to a men's security prison, and I was not in protective custody. I was in general population. That is correct. And
That
it was
must
to
be-
answer your. Go ahead. You were going to say something?
You must have been scared, like.
Yeah.
I absolutely was, because I mean, I'm 17 years old, maybe 160 pounds. I'm there with grown men who work out, whose arms
Yeah,
are big
right.
as my legs.
Right.
A lot of them are guilty for violent crimes. I'm scared to death that they're going to realize what I'm incarcerated for, which is rape with the
sexual
murder.
crime.
So anyone
Which
that's
puts you on low person on the totem pole. on
yeah,
that one.
absolutely, and it makes you subject for vigilante justice by the inmates. Who
Right,
live
'cause
below
they even look down on that kind of.
Right, exactly. To summarize, though, it was. I would say it was a living hell, a nonstop obstacle course featuring the guards, the prisoners, and the civilians, all as threats to your safety and an obstacle to the ultimate goal, which is to try to clear your name and regain
Get
your
out,
freedom.
yeah.
So how'd you finally get somebody to listen to you?
It's a serendipitous tale, which I'll make really concise, but I think you'll really enjoy it. I was actually writing a book author in care of the publishing company, who was a warden, former warden of a men's prison in California. And I thought, well, aha, this might be somebody who in her walk of life might have come across somebody who could link me to the necessary legal services, because I didn't have any money to hire a lawyer and investigator, so I needed people who would take the case for free. Someone at the publishing company read the letter, and instead of forwarding it to the author, they instead sent it to an investigator, Claudia Whitman, out of Colorado and Maine. She wrote me back right away, and she tried to get people to take my case, and she gave me ideas. And one of her ideas was to write the Innocence Project. And she also lobbied the organization from outside of it to take my case.
And they do that pro bono.
They do that pro bono.
Right.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
So now you're out.
Yes.
And we should mention, by the way, we talked about this off camera, but people should understand that there is no restitution for what happened to you. Let's face it.
Right.
But to the degree there is any form or semblance of it, you have received monetary compensation through
Yes.
lawsuits that we were discussing. Amount to almost 10 million. Not that you have that money, all of it, but as people know, it goes to different places. But you're using a substantial amount of money, $1.5 million, to now try to help other people in a similar position that you faced.
Well, that's what I wanted to go into about moving forward.
Right.
Yes.
You didn't spend your time, feeling sorry for yourself.
Right,
I would
right.
assume you had a little time to feel sorry for yourself. But what made you stop that to move forward?
Right. That's what's remarkable. Yeah.
Right. Well,
Was it in you?
Well,
Was
I
it
mean,
your friends?
I
Was
don't-
it?
Well, I'll answer you. Really, I never felt sorry for myself. I mean, I did feel the emotional or the afterfall of. I did feel the traumatic impact of it. Sure, but I don't really consider that analogous to feeling sorry for myself. So I realized right away as soon as I was released, because in the press conference and where I was constipated for 16 years, and everything I ever wanted to say, I could never get anyone to hear.
Right.
So it all kind of came
Came
out
out.
at once. I did like a 2.5 hour off the cuff presentation in front of the news media when I was released. And it was at that point, as I left, that the thought dawned on me, I don't have to wait to be a lawyer to be involved in the overall innocence movement. There's other things I can do. I can speak. I became a columnist.
That's what I want to say. First thing I noticed was how you moved forward. You became a columnist dealing with wrongful convictions to show that this was not just an aberration,
Right.
that it's more common than people would be comfortable to know.
Absolutely. Across the country, there have been about 290 DNA-proven wrongful convictions, 28 in New York, and many other across the country. There's many other non-DNA exonerations.
Since when? In what period of time?
Well, since from 1989 to now.
Okay.
That's just DNA, but then there's many more DNA
Whatever
That's right,
happened
20
to our
23
system
years.
of justice where better one guilty man go free than an innocent man go to jail? Where right now you're seeing guilty people going free and innocent people going to jail.
Well, it's a wonderful saying, and it's supposed to be a bedrock legal principle of our
Yeah.
justice system. It's only talk, though. In all reality,
Well, but it's not-
you're guilty until
Right.
proven innocent in the way that the court system actually works.
Right. But listen, it's hard to hear, but nothing's foolproof. Nothing's 100%. So,
But
right?
I- but
Isn't that part of it? That
It is. I agree.
I
I agree with you, but I want to say that the systemic deficiencies that lead to wrongful convictions are known. Coerced false, and the reforms, coerced false confessions, which could be remedied at least in part by videotaping interrogations, having false confession expert testimony, better, misidentification, which has caused wrongful convictions in 75% of the cases. Better procedures have been identified. Bad lawyering. I just need a second. I'm not going to take a lot of time.
Oh, no.
But
You're the guest.
incentivized witnessing, where people get rewards for testimony, junk science, rogue forensic experts of one kind or another. These things are all known. Prosecutorial misconduct, but we don't see the legislative reforms either in New York or across the country. Most of, these reforms are not enacted by
Isn't
the
there one
legislature,
thing-
and to that extent, I don't fully buy. Well, we're just human.
I know what you're saying. I
We're
understand
going to
what you're
always
saying.
make some mistakes,
Right.
but let's address the things, the shortcomings that we know to
you're-
minimize.
but
So you're
that.
saying
there's one-
they're avoidable mistakes?
Yes,
Yeah.
But
Many
there's
of them
one
are
other
avoidable.
thing,
Yes.
and that's the inability of people to admit they were wrong.
That is huge.
Because
that
that's
is a
you
huge
told
part
me
of it.
like
Janine Pirro.
Janine Pirro. She wouldn't admit she was wrong, which is why she didn't want to hear you. It was Janet DiFiore that finally cut you to some slack.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the one part. People don't want to admit they were wrong in the enforcement field, do they?
No, they don't. That's true on the police level. It's true on the
Right, I said
prosecutorial level.
enforcement, that's what I
Right,
said.
but it's also true on the judicial level. The average length of wrongful incarceration for someone who's cleared is 13 years, and in many instances, a person who's cleared, their appeals have long since been exhausted. So the judicial branch, both on a trial level in terms of enforcing Miranda rights and that accurate identification procedures are followed, to on an appellate level, I mean, judges rubber stamp deny appeals regularly. And so that's a big part of the problem.
So now, with part of this moving on, you have, because you can now, well, like Bruce said in the beginning, you can't empathize. Is that the word I'm thinking about? How somebody feels?
Well, I
like
mean, technically or grammatically, sympathize means that you've actually experienced
No,
it.
but-
Empathize means that you can, but in this case, you can't even empathize.
So
Forget
now
about
you have a
sympathize. Right.
foundation.
Yes.
Because you can do
Yes.
this. You are in that unique position.
Right.
And so you've taken some of your, I don't know, what do they call that?
Financial compensation.
Financial compensation to help others. Is this
Yes.
correct?
And I know before, because
just-
we just we like to manage the time here, Jeff, because
Sure,
it
go
goes
ahead,
by
please.
fast. So just make sure before we end that I know you want to get in the 4 prongs of your
Yes.
Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice.
Right. Quickly, the point that we were making before that you brought up, Bruce, was, and Anthony's question was related to that. I've been an advocate individually when I didn't have anything. You know, I was writing the weekly columns
Right.
for the Guardian. I was doing lectures across the country. I was basically trading privacy for increased awareness and doing multimedia interviews. I was lobbying the state legislature, going to hearings when they were considering bills that would stop this from happening. When I suddenly found myself in possession of some money by virtue of the lawsuits. I was in position, as you mentioned, to launch the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice. Let me hit the 4 prongs now, okay?
Yes, all
First, some of them are more of same in terms of what I did individually, the raising awareness, the legislative changes.
1 second. What
Sure.
is the contact information before we run out of time and lose
Sure,
it?
sure.
The name of the group, contact information.
Yes, it's the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice. Our address is 133 West 72nd Street, New York, New York 10023. People can contact us that way. The website, people can email us through the website. It's the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice.org. Our 4 prongs are raising public awareness, because that sets the stage for legislative changes. The legislative component in which we seek to address those systemic deficiencies to stop people from going in the first place. So those are done collaboratively now rather than by me as an individually. Then there's the exonerative component, which I could never do on my own,
Right.
which pertains to trying to clear other people who I metaphorically left behind, not just in DNA cases, which is what most of the organizations in the field do, but DNA is only around in 10 or 12% of all
Right.
serious felony cases.
Right.
But there's other ways of clearing people in non-DNA cases, from investigating similar crimes in nearby areas, looking at alternative suspects, reviewing files to make sure that exculpatory...
Investigating the investigators?
That's a part of it, absolutely. If there's a rogue law enforcement or forensic person, making sure all exculpatory information was actually turned over.
right.
Yeah, so those are some of the ways. So this can be done, and there's actually more non-DNA exonerations nationally than there are DNA. I just want to get the last prong in, and then you're bursting, and then I'll.
Right.
The last part is the reintegrative component, in which we're trying to assist people in rebuilding their lives once
Right.
they've been cleared.
Yeah,
One
and we
quick
have to
question,
talk
because
to
we're
her.
running
Shut
out
up.
of time. Everybody in prison says they're innocent. That's the old axiom. How do you know the difference?
Okay, well, firstly, it is an axiom. Most people are not saying that. Here's the.
Well,
here's-
that's why I said it's an
right,
axiom.
it is. Here's
How
how
do you know the
we know.
difference?
We have a questionnaire which enables us to get our heads around the case. We know what the systemic causes are that cause it. So if when we look at what the evidence of guilt is, if it looks something funny, then we know that this deserves to have a closer look. We ask ourselves 2 questions. Does the person have a colorable claim of innocence based on something objective, and is there a direction to go in?
Okay, we got to wrap it up now. Yeah,
Before we wrap it up.
We have no time.
We have no time? Well,
No time.
Just tell them
Yeah.
you're still available.
Yeah.
If you're single and you're available.
I'm available.
Anyway, these are my opinions. You may beg to differ.
And when Bruce the Blog listens, people talk. And if it's before April 22nd you're watching this, a funny thing happened on the way to the forum at Yorktown Stage.
Yes. Good evening, everybody.
Bye. Thank you, Jeff.
This was in yesterday.